How's it going, everyone? Domadeus Gaming back with another video, and today we'll be going over my ideas for a Black Panther Civil War rework. Now, this is going to be in the thought process of an overhaul of the champion, meaning all of his abilities that you're going to see in the document I will be reading off of are going to be completely different and completely new to the champion. Now, all these abilities you're going to see today are of my own concept, so these are not official Kabam updates to the champion. I know they mentioned that Black Panther would be getting a rework at some point, but this is not it. This is my own concept. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. First up, we have Black Panther's abilities. Now, most of Black Panther Civil War's kit is going to revolve around kinetic potential, as shown in this scene here. Now, with this idea, Black Panther is going to be able to build up these kinetic potential charges to increase his utility as well as his damage, which we'll talk about when we get to his special attacks. Now, as you can see, over the course of the fight, kinetic potential will increase by 1 every 10 seconds. When struck, or if the opponent hits into the block, kinetic potential will increase by 1 for each hit. Completing a well-timed block, aka a parry, will increase kinetic potential by 2. Each charge of kinetic potential increases physical resistance, critical resistance, and block proficiency by 6%, as well as reduces the effects of bleed and incinerate by 20% per charge. At 5+ stacks of kinetic potential, gain an indefinite armor buff, increasing armor rating by 275.34. At 9+ stacks of kinetic potential, claw attacks have true strike, ignoring armor, resistances, and auto block and evade effects. And at 12 or more stacks of kinetic potential, reduced any inflicted damage after a special attack by 100% for 2 seconds. After this ability triggers, it goes on cooldown for 8 seconds. Finally, kinetic potential has a cap of 15. Now, with all this being said, this kinetic potential kit is going to be influential in how you would play this new Black Panther. The idea being you take a lot of hits to deal out a lot of damage and build up his utility. With each kinetic potential increasing your resistances and block proficiency, that's going to allow you to take more and more hits into the block, as well as build up your parries to be able to potentially hit some perfect blocks when your kinetic potential is near max stacks. In addition, the resistance to bleed and incinerate will come in handy in fights where incinerate can be a problem, in addition to be able to handling fights like Mephisto with his aura of incineration, as well as the bleed resistance being useful when building up kinetic potential to take lanes in Alliance Quest like Caltrops. But with these resistances at 20% per pop, at 5 kinetic potential, you're ignoring any bleed and incinerate damage for the rest of the fight, or at least as long as you have at least 5 kinetic potential. With the added effects of kinetic potential building up during the fight, Black Panther is going to be able to access some really niche utility. With the 5+ stacks, you're going to gain that armor up buff. Now, the number attached to it is kind of a random number I put on there based on his current armor up in-game as a rank 2 5-star. But this indefinite armor up buff is going to allow you to take fights like Havoc as a skill character, which is very, very rare, and I think could be really useful in certain scenarios. At 9+ stacks, giving the claw attacks, which I'll talk about in a little bit, giving them true strike is kind of something pulled from Killmonger. In when you punish an opponent's special attack, you gain a true strike buff, passive rather, but with the claw attacks, that's going to allow you to bypass Medusas, Modocs, and other really annoying auto block fights, as well as taking on some tricky evade champions as well. Now, with 12 stacks, this is one of my favorite abilities that I thought of, because there aren't a lot of champions that don't require a synergy, looking at you, Ghost, that can kind of bypass recoil damage with the recoil mastery. Now, at 12 stacks of kinetic potential, reducing the damage inflicted after a special attack by 100% for 2 seconds is going to allow you to throw specials with some partial immunity to any damage. Granted, the cooldown is going to allow this to be a little bit more balanced, so you can't just throw specials back to back to back and not trigger recoil, but in certain scenarios where you're not going to want to throw special attacks for a little while, because of the recoil master, you're going to be able to and not take damage. as well as in scenarios where maybe you throw a special too early and the opponent starts to block and you know they're going to punish you for it. This gives you a little bit of a fail-safe to be able to take that damage for at least a couple seconds, maybe not a full combo, but to mitigate some of the damage you would take if you mess up. Now, getting into some of the damage that Black Panther can do, he has a passive called Kinetic Overload. Once Black Panther reaches his kinetic potential cap of 15, each time a new kinetic potential charge would be gained, deal 400 energy damage to the opponent. Champions with the tag Vibranium or do not have an active or passive armor break debuff receive no damage from this ability. This ability obviously taking some inspiration from champions like Captain America Infinity War, Thing, and Korg in the thought process of when their stacks get to a certain amount, they start to trigger different effects, while still having some mitigation so you're not worrying when you're fighting this champion on defense about taking random damage that you can't avoid. Now when attacking, Black Panther's claw attacks inflict a stacking bleed debuff, dealing 750 damage over 3 seconds. Claw attacks occur on the first and last medium attacks as well as the third light attack. And heavy attacks inflict a non-stacking armor break debuff on the opponent that reduces enemy armor rating by 550. Again, the numbers are just kind of random, while still keeping in mind some of the abilities of champions like Squirrel Girl or champions that inflict armor break like Iron Man Infinity War. Now, how your attacks synergize with the kinetic potential passive is as follows. When you have those 12 plus stacks of kinetic potential, claw attacks on the first and last medium and the third light attack are going to be able to cancel out evade and auto block from certain annoying defenders. And with the heavy attacks, you're going to be able to get some nice damage with those armor breaks on the opponent, as well as shutting down some annoying defenders like Iron Man Infinity War with that last 18%, which is always annoying to fight against. Now on defense, this passive kinetic overload could be pretty annoying to deal with, especially on lanes where energy damage is increased, but you're pretty much able to ignore that if you bring in champions that have the Vibranium tag like a Black Panther or a Killmonger, or if you just don't allow Black Panther to get a heavy on you, which why would you want to do that in the first place, right? Now looking at the kinetic potential having a cap of 15, this is also going to be where the damage lies. And with that, let's go ahead and look at Black Panther's special attacks. Now here's what everyone's probably waiting for this video. How much damage can Black Panther Civil War do with this rework concept? So I wanted this champion to be able to do a lot of damage while still not being super broken. So first off, we have this idea of anytime that you launch a special attack, you're going to refresh your kinetic potentials all the way down to 0, but you're going to do a burst of energy damage, 1650 energy damage per kinetic potential stack. Now with the max of 15 kinetic potential, that's going to do a burst of about 24,000 damage in addition to the damage with your special attack, which I think is a nice number. It kind of is in the idea of Odin doing some direct damage on his special attacks when you have a certain amount of buffs, but not super broken at the point where it would need a nerf at any point. So, Special Attack 1, Panther Assault. 100% chance to inflict bleed on each hit, dealing 431 direct damage over 3 seconds. Bleeds inflicted from a critical hit can become critical bleeds, multiplying their potency by the critical damage multiplier and last for 6 seconds. So with this idea, I kind of took some inspiration from Squirrel Girl with her critical bleeds, in that at first those bleeds don't do a lot of damage, but if you're able to land critical hits with them, they're going to start doing some really, really nasty damage over time. And when you do the critical bleed with Black Panther, they're going to last longer as well. They double in duration, and they're going to be a lot more potent when you hit. The SP2 Bast's Power. Gain a prowess buff that increases special attack damage by 15% per kinetic potential charge. If this prowess is nullified or negated by stagger effects or prevented by ability accuracy effects, gain 8% of a bar of power over 5 seconds per kinetic potential charge once this special attack ends. So, with all that being said, 15 times 15, that's going to be a 225% prowess, which is going to do some monster damage That's pretty much in line with most champions nowadays doing most of their damage on their special 2. Now, with the idea of that prowess being negated by champions that either nullify it on hit or on contact, or if they're fate sealed or staggered in that sense as well, my thought is you can get back to a special pretty quickly with 15 kinetic potential stacks. That's going to give you just over a bar of power, a bar and maybe 20%, which is going to allow you to build up again to a special 2 and do some big damage pretty quickly. Now I got a real kick about thinking about this special 3, which I'm calling King of Wakanda. Inflict a passive armor break debuff on the opponent, reducing armor rating by 1500 for 12 seconds. This armor break can be refreshed by heavy attacks. This is pretty standard. Just do a big L3, get a nice big chunky armor break, and the idea of being able to refresh it with heavy attacks falls in line with his ability to apply the armor breaks on the heavy as it is. Now, the little additional effect for this L3 is if Black Panther Civil War is a 5 or 6 star champion, most of you know there is that little mini game when you launch the L3 that allows you to do some bonus damage. And I thought it might be kind of fun to have some additional effects for those higher rated champions because in addition to the damage, if the 20% bonus damage is achieved at the beginning of the attack, so that, the little green sliver, gain 2 passive kinetic potential charges that last indefinitely that also cannot be removed by special attacks. Now this is going to be great for longer fights in that if you drop a whole bunch of level 3s and hit 20% bonus damages, you're going to be able to build up a max stack of 6 of these charges, which are going to allow you to have the armor up debuff, or armor up buff I should say, for the rest of the fight, as well as get to that big damage quicker for the rest of your special attacks. And as an added bonus, if you don't hit the 20% and you hit the 12%, you're going to gain 1 of these charges. On top of all that, each indefinite charge grants a passive attack bonus of 700, meaning when you have the max 6 stacks of these indefinite kinetic potential charges, you're gaining a bonus of about 4200, which in certain senses is kind of busted, but in longer fights, they're going to carry you really, really well. And in shorter fights, it's not really going to matter because in most short fights, you're not going to want to drop a whole lot of special 3s and build up and build up and build up. This is mainly for that long form content, kind of rivaling champions like Aegon or Strife, where the more you fight with them, the stronger they become. Now, are there some abilities here that I think could be a little bit too overpowered? Definitely. But again, this is just a concept, and I thought some of these abilities and some of these percentages and some of the numbers were kind of in line with a lot of the more used champions, the god tiers and beyond god tiers that we see nowadays. Anyway, with Black Panther's special attacks out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at my idea for his new revamped signature ability. Now with Black Panther's signature ability, which I'm calling Wakanda Forever, I took a lot of inspiration from the Tribe challenge scene from the movie that came out in 2018, using some of their costuming as well as, kind of their descriptions from the little pieces of the movie, just to kind of influence my ideas for what they could bring to the table. Black Panther calls upon the different tribes of Wakanda to aid him in battle and grant him certain abilities based on the opponent he's facing. First up, we have the River Tribe.
The River Tribe will not challenge today.
Now this ability is going to trigger when Black Panther fights against science champions. I use the idea of the River Tribe having kind of green outfits as the idea behind, okay, well, Black Panther being a skill character, when he fights against science champions whose class icon is green, he's already going to have the class advantage, and I think it should line up with him having some added bonus effects. Being, Black Panther gains X% bleed duration and potency, and if the opponent is bleed immune, Black Panther increases kinetic potential X% faster. Obviously, X being in line with your Sig ability and putting in Sig stones and those numbers going up and up and up. Pretty much with this one, you're going to be able to do some pretty hefty bleed damage, and if they're bleed immune, you're going to be doing some even bigger specials more often with that kinetic potential increasing, a certain percent faster. Next, we have the Border Tribe.
I
Border tribe will not challenge today.
Now, with the Border Tribe, I took a lot of inspiration from Black Panther, with the Mercenaries tag, with Killmonger coming in and kind of raising hell, and then also with Thanos' army. So you're going to be able to take on Cull Obsidian and Proxima and Ebony Maw, like they came to Wakanda in Infinity War. So Black Panther gains X armor rating and is now armor break immune. Additionally, if Black Panther's ability accuracy cannot be lowered below X%. Now, this one's a little bit weird, and this was one that I might want to change a little bit. I might do it so that your armors can't be nullified as well as armor break immune, or just swap that out. But I thought it would be cool to be able to increase his resistance to ability accuracy modifiers, such as Domino. And this is kind of the one that I thought would be really good to take Black Panther against Domino. That way you can kind of negate a lot of that critical failure that deals a lot of energy damage, especially on Alliance War. I also thought it was kind of fun to have an armor up based ability with the Border Tribe having those blue energy shields that they always use in the movies. Next up, we have the Mining Tribe.
The Mining Tribe will not challenge today.
Now, with this one, this is going to be versus Metal Champions. Now, it's not going to be as crazy as taking like a Magneto versus Metal Champions. Magneto, with this idea, is still going to be the king of metal fights, but with Black Panther being the king of Wakanda, he has the Vibranium Claws, which supposedly in the MCU are the strongest metal, at least until they introduce things like adamantium and carbonadium, all that stuff. But as of right now, Vibranium is the strongest metal. So, that being said, it makes sense for Black Panther to be able to do some crazy stuff when he fights against those metal champions. So with this one, Black Panther's Vibranium Claws can cut through the toughest of other metals, granting him the ability to apply a stacking armor break on his opponent, bypassing any armor break immunities. Armor breaks now reduce opponent's armor rating by an additional X. So this is going to be really cool for fights against champions like Dr. Doom, or fights like Colossus where normally you can't armor break him unless you're a tech opponent. This is going to give Black Panther some really nice utility in those fights, or just to be able to do some really big damage against those tricky defenders like Dr. Doom, which are typically armor break immune. This is also going to allow Black Panther to do some extra damage with the kinetic overload, to do some burst damage along with everything else. The inspiration for this one was pretty much mining. Metal kind of goes hand in hand, so that was the idea. Next up, we have the Merchant Tribe.
The Merchant Tribe will not challenge today.
Now, with this one, I thought Merchant Tribe, this is going to be kind of their outreach, right? At the end of Black Panther, T'Challa and Shuri go to the UN and announce that they are coming into the world and going to be allowing other countries to partner with them and, start opening trade lines and all that stuff. So I thought, you know what, this one can be versus all non-Wakandan champions, kind of in that idea of Wakanda coming out into the fray and participating in the world and all that stuff. So this one's pretty simple. This one is just going to increase Black Panther's kinetic potential charges to have a new cap, which is X, and that'll, can go up and up based on the SIG ability. As far as what that would go up to, I would say maybe 5, so the max cap would be 20, but it could go up even to 25. Now, last but not least, we have the Dora Milaje. Now, I know the Dora Milaje isn't technically a tribe, but I thought it was important to include them in his abilities, because in the movies, T'Challa always travels with one member of the Dora Milaje at least. In Civil War, it was Io, and then obviously always all the other Dora Milaje, like Okoye, are going to be present anytime he goes anywhere. So I thought it was important to include them as well. Now, this one I think would be the most important part of his SIG ability, which you would want him awakened for this. Black Panther starts with 3 kinetic potential charges, and all kinetic charges increase their effect potency by X%. This is going to increase not only the resistances and block proficiency per kinetic potential, this is also going to increase your bleed and incinerate resistance, and it's also going to increase the energy damage you do on kinetic overload, as well as the prowess. Now, I thought about this and I thought, you know what? the higher the SIG ability goes, the bigger damage you're going to do with the L2, which I thought would be really, really cool to have in his kit as part of the SIG ability, which makes it really valuable. But I think at base, he's still going to be able to do some really nice stuff. Again, this might be another ability that might make him a little bit too OP. I could see this one being changed to maybe starting with only 2 kinetic potential and maybe changing out the additional effect with it. And with all of that, that kind of covers my idea for a Black Panther Civil War complete rework. I hope you liked my ideas. Definitely let me know if you have other ideas of his kit. I do have to give a big shout out to Slayer of Gods, who also did a rework idea that he posted on Twitter a while back. This idea kind of came about with KarateMike's contest he held back in December, which I had a lot of fun developing this buff. I will leave a link in the description if you'd like to check it out on a Google Doc that I made, and you can check out some of the notes there as well. But again, let me know if you enjoyed this buff. Let me know if you would want to see more buff ideas. I'm definitely chock full of ideas for this game. I love playing this game, and I'd love to see champions like Black Panther get some love in the contest. So that's going to do it for today's video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it again, and we'll see you in the next one.